Happy release of set 11 in Japan, everyone. It is finally releasing here in just a day. And of course, as we usually do with every single set, we are going to do a quick first impressions looking at the set itself. This set's pretty interesting because it's mostly support for all decks with 4 new ride lines. So we have Azel Vermilion, Silhouette, as well as Lulu Zulu, and then a lot of support for old decks, like a lot. So support for old encounters, support for the old Craycross Epic decks. And so we're going to take a look at everything, and there's a lot of generics, especially ones that are very order oriented in this set too. So we'll talk about everything in order of nations and give little ratings as we go, as we usually do. So let's get into it. So starting off, we are going to take a look at the general, everything here. We'll start with Dragon Empire, but the only non-nation generics are actually just a reprint of, if we scroll down all the way to the very bottom, they reprinted the Dragon Tree marker again. So they're reprinting Dragon Tree markers every single set. The reason why this time is because of Greedon masks. So we have a masks unit, so they give you a Dragon Tree. So the markers will keep getting cheaper and cheaper, which is good. But anyway, let's get into Dragon Empire first. So Dragon Empire, of course, is basically the covers are these two. So Tamayura, I would say overall, we can zoom in a little bit more. Tamayura is, I tested against yesterday with proxies. Feels like it's the same deck, but faster, and because you don't have to pay CB for Tamayura's call effect anymore, you actually get way more use of your effects, for the multi-attacks, as well as putting them back in with the grade 1s. And you also generate more soul, because riding this one, you rewrite back into the old one every turn, so that generates +1 soul as well. So you get more card draw, / you can put some of your opponent's barriers to soul. Like I was playing Willista against Tamayura, and having my Yuikas get put to soul was pretty annoying. So I think overall Tamayura is definitely a pretty high rating for me. And Vermilion is the new one. So Vermilion, I think they did a beautiful job at making Vermilion feel Vermilion in Standard. I was talking about this on stream earlier, but I think that Bouchard has really made encounters feel very accurate to their original selves. V-Series really butchered and bastardized a lot of the nostalgia factor. It's hey, you remember Lukier, who used to do a bunch of superior calling from soul in main phase, build power, and then do some battle phase combos? Well, forget that, because now you're gonna make 14 different Axel markers, draw cards, and that's it, So I feel like they've done a really good job with encounters so far in Standard, and I think overall Vermilion seems good. You still have the front, you don't just have the multi-attack with one unit, but the bind is annoying for certain matchups like Eva, and you have a little bit of draw power through things like Death Scythe. I think overall the deck does feel like it's slightly lacking in draw power department, but it does make up for it through its kind of unique gimmick of being able to bind the units that he attacks. And of course, the ride line is actually pretty good too. He's a 15k attacker that generates soul, and you will need that soul because you'll be using it for your draw effects, as well as Rising Phoenix, who, once your opponent's on 5, will get stronger. And yes, I'm sure Vermilion will get a promo somewhere along the way too, as Imagi's saying in chat, get a little CAC treatment. But overall, I think Vermilion's quite good. I wouldn't say it's as, don't forget the damage ping, that too. I was gonna say the damage ping helps push your opponent to 5, where the Rising Phoenix combos do start to be more effective. I'm curious to see if this will perform at all in Nagoya next week or not. I feel like it has an edge into the Eva matchup, which I'm sure will be relatively popular just because she got new support. So Vermilion, relatively high hopes. I think we'll see how it performs or not, whereas Tamayura, I'm more certain will perform well. And then for the generic package, there's also a lot of Shoujo Doji support, which apparently to the people testing Shoujo Doji is good in both Shoujo Doji and the Snake. So that's, if you're Shoujo Doji extraordinaire, you'll be happy about the support here. And it's, that obviously brings up the rating of the nation up a little bit too. The generics are fine. I like her because she can be good in Buff Sagara and a bunch of different decks where it's as long as you play orders, Buff Sagara plays her weapons, you can also check top 5 for normal units, so you can call out Trick Moons and stuff like that. So, and she's also a decent attacker, getting +5k for every one of your opponent's empty regards in the same column as her is pretty nice. Also, of course, good in Vermilion too. So I think that's a good generic as well. And overall, everything else is very order focused, which I think will depend on the deck. Can't really say if they're great or not. A lot of them gain 10k power, or basically just build power, or build soul and things like that. And then there's random support for those random common grade 3s, like the Musashi'd armor. This is a draw card for Musashi'd armor, and a 10k power rear guard. So pretty interesting. And also every nation, I think, got a Blitz order. So the Blitz order for Dragon Empire is pretty cool, where you can bounce one of your Guardians and it's a 10k shield. So pretty decent. Might see some play here and there, but a little bit doubtful on that one. And it's a dino, that's true. So I think overall for Dragon Empire, I would give it, I'm honestly inclined to give it a 5 out of 5 almost, because I feel like everything is good. Like Vermilion is good, Tamayura is good, like everything feels good, even the generics are good. So I will be nice, I'll be kind, and actually give a good rating to Dragon Empire, because I feel like everything in the set for Dragon Empire deserves a high rating. Then we move on to Dark States. Dark States, I initially didn't have a good rating, especially of Greedon, but my chat has been like just screaming at me, telling me that Greedon is good, and apparently much better than the old Greedon. So, you know, apparently you can do Battle Door with a bunch of different attacks, with a bunch of, like, a lot of attacks under Battle Door. Of course, Vanguard only swings twice, but maybe that's enough now. So I want to be convinced on Greedon. Hopefully we see some results from either Japan or maybe from Asia. You know, they have their WGBs as well coming up. Chaos, though, has been the one I'm more impressed with, because new Chaos definitely patched things up. Giving the extra 10k power during the main phase means that your Mikani is swinging with that extra power twice instead of just once, and he gets himself the extra crit, and of course builds soul and hand. So I think it's pretty good. I think Chaos is going to be pretty damn good. And then of course the order generic is decent. Soul Blast 3 for draw 1, she's like a grade 2 Mikani, so it's like when she attacks Soul Blast 3, draw 1, get 5k is like, not Mikani, grade 2 Gungunram is like, that part is already not bad. Like having a Gungunram as a grade 2 is potentially okay. And on top of that, she also, of course, when you play an order, lets you Soul Blast 1 to look at top 5 for a, you know, normal unit or order and add it to your hand or call it. So I think she might be also a decent generic just because of that second effect. Jet got support with an on-hit countercharger slash when placed by Vanguard's ability, count +1, draw 1, get 5k. So you'd have to call this from Fate Rider instead of upstream. Not sure if you would want to do that, but you know, the draw power might help in certain scenarios where your soul is too low, instead of like upstreaming into a GG that cannot draw, you know, or just upstreaming into Gungunram just for the soul generation. And the on-hit countercharge is nice, but it has to hit the Vanguard, so keep that in mind. You have to be on a grade 4 Vanguard too, so you can't do it on your next stage turn after your next stage attacks, and you always want to do next stage swing first, so not sure if you'll see a place in Jet or not. Then we have a Lukier support. This is basically a trapezist, so she counts as a grade 0 in the soul, and when she's called by your Vanguard's effect, you can put another regard to soul to then pop one of your other cards from your soul out onto a regard circle, and then it goes back to soul. So it's literally trapezist. So definitely a good card to have for Lukier. And then we got a bunch of like generic order support. The Chaos support cards are also nice. Like this thing builds soul and hand, and is also like a 10k booster that builds soul. So a consistency boost for Chaos, which is nice. And then a lot of Greedon support, and of course like the offbeat, like what is this, like not Favernil, but that other grade 3 promo ride, you know, grade 3 card from Monthly Bushiroad is supported here. I forget the name of that freaking thing, but you know the one that I mean. Generics for Dark States, yeah, Baphomedes, so pretty okay. A lot of the other generics feel kind of alright, like they feel like they're good one-ofs in Chaos basically, because they build soul, they cycle soul, and things like that, so for that might be okay. The Blitz order here as well is like Soul Blast 1, 10k shield, and if you Soul Blast at a trigger, it's 20k shield, which I think is pretty good for a Blitz order. Like, I would kind of encourage Bushi to explore even more powerful Blitz orders. Like, don't be afraid to print scarier things, like put an opponent's rearguard to soul when it attacks. Like, we can start, we're 11 sets in. We're 11 sets in. We can start exploring some of the more crazy Blitz order design, I think. It'd be nice. But yes, also the Meta Knight. I like the Meta Knight card a lot too. But overall, Dark States, I need some convincing still on Greedon. Chaos I rate pretty highly, genuinely. And then the Lukier and Jet support is also nice, especially the Lukier one. But I think Dark States overall gets like a 4 out of 5. I would give it a 3 on my personal rating of Greedon, but I'm being convinced that it's better than I think it is. So I'll give it a 4. I'll be nice. 4 out of 5 for Dark States. I think it can have that. It can have that. And then we move on to Brankgate. I'll keep this one short because this is the one that I've definitely tested the most. New Eva is good, but not better than the original, in my opinion. It's weird because in Japan, or I shouldn't say in Japan, but basically Miltai, which was one of the main like opinion makers, let's say the main influencer, sorry, opinion maker is not a very nice thing to say. Influencers. One of the main Japanese influencers says that the original Eva's like specs as a card were so low that now that you have a card with higher specs, the deck gets so much better. But in my opinion, old Eva is so good because of the fact that she scries, and that lets you compress, find PGs, find cards you're missing, like, you know, you're persona writing and you don't have a habitable zone, boom, you have a habitable zone now, right? So the new Eva is like, she removes the cost from everything. So in English, if you don't get Combine Rusher restricted, she'll be insane because she doesn't cost CB. So you can Combine Rusher to your heart's content. So in English, I think she's really good. In Japanese, where we have Combine Rusher restricted, I don't know, like I play tested with a focus on this Eva instead of the old one, and I had a lot of floating CB, and you know, I still ended up winning games on the old Eva because I could go CB1 and have like 6 research orders and just like, you know, stack my whole deck. But with this Eva, it's just kind of like, I don't know, it feels a little bit like she's very good, but I think future cards might make her a little bit better. Whoa, future card, buddy fight. But I think future cards might make her a little bit better. And if Combine Rusher comes back in the June restriction list, then that'll make her really good. And because they reprinted Combine Rusher in this set with like that secret rare print, maybe, perhaps, we'll see. But anyway, Eva didn't really get too much other support, really. We do have the generic Blitz Order package, which I quite like. I don't think it's that good in Eva herself. Also running both OG Eva and this Eva, you have to soul blast the original Eva to use her. Otherwise you have an illegal deck, or like you have a vanilla. This great, you can literally like mark her out all of her effects of this card. If you don't run the original Eva, you cannot do anything. So basically, yeah, that's my rating of Eva. The generic package I think is better in things that aren't Eva. I tried it in Eva, but it just felt kind of clunky, but I'll definitely try it out a little bit more. But I think it's decent. Blitz Order search for the Blitz Order is pretty good because the Blitz Order is quite strong. It is able to choose 2 cards that are grade 2 or greater from your drop and guard with them and then get 10k shield. So like hypothetically in Eva, you have like, you know, grade 3 and grade 2 obfuscate, boom, 30k shield. Like that's pretty good, but felt a bit clunky. So maybe trying to increase. And like the other thing that feels bad is that in Eva, like Habitable Zone actually helps you in the early game because it's a cycle card. Whereas this is like, yeah, you have an attacker in the early game, but at the end of the day, you still want to use her more when you're in grade 3 because she self-clears a circle that you would call from Eva skill on. So yeah, that's why it's a little bit questionable. I love her art though, so I think could be good in Orphist, yeah, or like maybe something else. Archite, I guess, also needs like, she needs a self-clearing rearguard circle. And then also think that the Falcon Macross bird thing is also kind of whatever in Eva 2. It's not necessarily that great, so it makes sense. You know, broken decks usually get a mid-wave of support. You know, Youth Perk is a great example of that. So it was definitely in that camp right now, but there is other support. We'll talk about Silhouette in a little bit, but Messiah support I think is really nice in this set. I'm a big fan of it. The Kaijus that are supporting everyone's favorite Archite, I think, are also pretty nice. They're not super great, but they're good enough. Like there's a Searcher, cost CB though. This one's pretty nice. You know, he gives your Archite Vanguard plus 5k as a grade 10. It's just a grade 2 10k Kaiju. I think it's pretty alright too. And then there's the double rare guy who I want to say is also an Archite support. So when he's discarded from your deck or hand, and you have 2 or more researchers in your order zone, you can almost one and call him to an empty rearguard circle. And then when he boosts, you may give him plus 5k, and if you did, you retire him at the end of that battle. So he kind of like self-clears too. So maybe it's okay. Definitely think it's decent, but that's basically the other supports. The main feature is, of course, the Silhouette. So I think Silhouette is pretty all right. It kind of just does its thing over and over again and just asks your opponent for PGs. But I think that's a fine thing to do. I really like it because I really love the Youthquake manga. I caught up on it and I'm really love it. To the point that I buy monthly Busho to read the manga now rather than, you know, for the promos. So Silhouette is decent. I think it's got a good thing going for itself, and it's pretty easy to support in the future as well. So I think we'll see more of it maybe as time goes on and as the manga goes on, especially because I'm sure we'll get more Youthquake ride lines because there's more characters in the manga that haven't really been explored yet, but I can imagine that they will explore them in the future. So Brankgate, honestly, initially I was going to give it a 5 out of 5, but in hindsight, there definitely are some places here and there where I feel like there was like space for improvement. And I think that like Silhouette is a great deck to get into Vanguard with. Like it's going to be probably very cheap too. I guess you'll need Bubble Mine, but it just got reprinted, so it's pretty cheap anyway. So definitely it's good as like a beginner deck for a Vanguard player. I'm a big fan of the Blitz package, just not so good in Eva. And the new Eva is good, but the rest of the support, like this bird thing, is not very good. So it's got me asking questions here and there. I think because I'm not confident in a 5 out of 5, I'll give it a 4 out of 5. I think I'll give Brankgate a 4 out of 5. Definitely feels like there's just a little bit lacking, just a tiny bit lacking maybe. Not sure where I would improve that, maybe in the archive department. I'm not too sure, but I think we'll maybe Silhouette a little bit. Not too sure, it's kind of hard to say. But anyway, moving on to Keter, I think is one of the other big winners of this set. Not necessarily because of the 2 featured units, but more so because of Minerva. So, but for the featured units, Tegrium seems very good now. I played against it once or twice, I think, on CFA, and like was pretty impressed with the fact that you essentially have like 50k columns that are attacking 4 times. Like, oh my god. So overall, it's definitely hits like a truck now, and it's more consistent, but it's locked behind turn 4. So that is like the one unfortunate thing, is that it's still a turn 4 deck, but all of these kind of are. Deck out after 2, double Persona Ride. I suppose that is also an issue. Yeah, like I haven't really played Tegrium myself. I don't like the deck, so I probably won't, but playing against it has definitely felt more threatening than it has in the past. Azel though, I think everyone's asking questions about Azel. Like the initial reaction, everyone was like, oh my god, Superior Ride is so broken. Oh, they should have restricted more. They should be a discard and a counter blast and a soul blast and a mega blast and like a Persona Ride and everything. You should lose your human rights if you Superior Ride, you know. But actually Superior Ride in Standard is pretty bad, because by going first or by going second in Superior Riding, you let Jet stride going first. You let Gandiva use Alpha Car going first. You let all of these decks that need your opponent's Vanguard to be grade 3 go full power at you on the turn that they were supposed to not go full power. That's the problem with Azel. Everything else about Azel was good. It's got the like rebuild your board if you have too few units through Soul Blasting, and it makes 5 attacks. The problem that I have is that it's on attack to call 2 units from top 7 is like, the fact that it has to call to open circles is fine. Like that's just whatever. You can open up those circles just fine. My issue is that the plus 10k goes to himself. For some reason, I thought that this gives plus 10k to the 2 units that were called and himself, or like, you know, or just the other called units. But I was like, oh wait, it's the original Azel. He has to gain power himself, right? Because that's like Azel's whole thing, is that he's like, you know, like Ibombe, like he gets the freaking, you know, the rally behind him and everyone powers him up because they were like role-playing Alfred back in the day. But, and yeah, that part is like the whole multi-attack thing is locked behind the opponent being grade 3. So that's also like, I don't know. I feel like that's a problem where if you don't Persona Ride, your rear guards are hitting like wet noodle, which is also not great. So I don't know, maybe it's just trauma, you know, like Superior Ride was so busted in past eras that now in D it's actually pretty bad. But otherwise Azel is cool, looks sick, very well designed, I would say. Making the Superior Ride, a Spear Call be in both main phase and battle phase is pretty cool. And I wasn't expecting them to print Limit Break 4 either, so it's not a big surprise either, I suppose. So yeah, it's pretty nice, and I think in terms of his support, Dindrain is very nice. Dindrain looks very important in terms of, you know, being a countercharger and letting you spam this on attack skill consistently. And you also have the draw from, of course, everyone's favorite Silver Fangwitch. So surprise, this is the original artist, and also it's the Ethics Buster artist too. So pretty surprising. And yeah, Bowman is also going to be very important as like a self-clearing rear guard. There's a countercharger that self-clears too, which I think will be pretty good. So maybe because of that countercharger being played, you might not run so many din drains, but I feel like just spamming Silverfang Witch plus Azel is going to cost you a fair bit of CB, so, you know, that might be a bit of an issue. But otherwise, Azel seems good. It seems good. The order I also really like a free top 7 call 1, give 5k is like pretty good. So those are good. Generics, like literally the exact same as the Dragon Empire one. It's also like gains 10k. They all kind of like gain 10k in one way or another. There's also a bunch of normal order support together with the order like this one that like powers up your stuff, which like I guess as a package could be played. I like that a lot of them are just like packages, so like doesn't hurt to pick up and maybe play here and there. So I think it's pretty interesting in that sense. And then you have a bunch of other generics for not just like Keter as a whole, but also for like nation stuff, right? So Din Drain lets you use the countercharge as long as you have a single clan Vanguard. So use it in PBO, MLB, like Minerva, whatever. But outside of like Tegrium support, there's also this big create a card that is for Minerva, which is the Regalium. So Regalium is 3 cards at 1, right? I think we were saying that she is Cider, Chamomile, and what was it? And like one other, and Carbre in 1 card, where her first effect is Carbre. When she's placed on a rear, not in battle phase, as long as your Vanguard's a Genesis, CB1 Soul Blast 1, draw 1, and call a card from hand to rear. So it's like basically, you know, a setup plus plussing. And then end of she boosted, you can put her column into your soul to choose a Genesis from your drop and add it back to your hand. So it's like, let's get, oh yeah, V Series Valencia, sorry, it was Valencia. So it's like, you get yourself in any phase as long as it's placed in rear. No, this first skill is when it's placed in any phase that isn't battle phase. So essentially it's like you have, the second skill is like you can get Persona Ride back, you can get your parts back, you can get, like so many like cards, except for herself. She's not a Genesis unit, so it's all encounter stuff, but she's really good. She's really good. Together, like Angelica, yeah, like you can get anything back. And there's also the like promo for Minerva for shop tournaments too. So yeah, it's also discard fodder for Minerva. So that's like the cider part of her. So this double rare is really good. Definitely a must have if you're a Genesis player. So big fan of it. Gramgreed got support through like soul charging and 5k, like 15k attacker, so it's also pretty decent. And I really like this blitz order too. It's like discard 1 to play it, and then the attack unit gets plus 5k, and then you can choose up to 4 heals from your drop and guard with them. So this can potentially go up to 105k shield if you use 4 effect heals, which I think is pretty funny. But even then, on average, this will be like 35k shield. Like that's pretty good. So you probably want to use it when you have like 2 heals and drop. Like minimum, it's going to be 20, I suppose, which is also fine. But I think you want to definitely save it for when you have multiples. So Keter, honestly, I think the Minerva side of Keter is pushing this really high. But the Azel and Tegrium stuff pushes it slightly lower. So I'm going to give it a 4 to 5. It's kind of the same as Brankate, where there's some big highs and some kind of like mids. So it doesn't get put super high. So far, the only 5 out of 5 is Dragon Empire. And then finally, we have Stoicheia. So Stoicheia, I'll have to give 2 separate ratings for, because in Japan, Stoicheia isn't just these guys. It's also the bugs. And I read Mushiking. These bugs are nasty, dude. These things, they will crawl in your ear at night. Like they're that kind of nasty. Like these bugs, I recommend you read all the Mushiking cards. I'm not going to go through everything now, but I read it and I was like, oh my god, these bugs they're crazy, dude. This thing's move is called Super Tornado Throw. You're telling me you don't want to play a deck that has Super Tornado Throw? Look at this. It's crazy. Super Dangan means Super Bullet. You want to shoot someone with a bug? You ever seen a bug pull up with a Glock? You can in Vanguard. It's crazy. So I recommend you read over these. They're pretty damn insane. So including Mushiking, it's a 5 out of 5. Like Stoicheia gets a 5 out of 5 just for Mushiking. Like this will actually be decent in my opinion. But for the actual non-collab cards, Lulu Zulu is a deck that I think is very interesting. It does something so cool. And I think somebody in chat put it really well earlier, where it's like, I love looking busy, and like it's like you don't achieve that much, but you do a lot. It's like it's the deck does so many little things, and it's got like plussing engine and like makes your opponent discard cards, and it's got like a little bit of multi-attack and like all these like little things incorporated in it. So I really want to play it because I think it looks fun. It just looks fun. I don't think it's necessarily gonna be great, but they're like, all the arts are so cute. All of the little gimmicks are so nice. I really do think that like this is a very well designed deck. Like you have Silhouette, which is a lot more simple. It's like, I will punch you with 63k and like my triggers will stay on my arms and I'll keep punching you with them, you know, and you get 4 attacks. It's pretty good. Whereas Lulu Zulu is a lot more like, okay, brain engagement, you know, and like you start thinking and get a headache, but you're having fun while getting that headache, so it's fine. But so I think Lulu Zulu like has a sweet spot in my heart. I think it's going to be a fun deck. I think the Rorowa support is really good. I think you literally take Rorowa, give it draw power, and you also get more, like you get crit, you get power. It's like the same as Chaos. So I think Rorowa support seems pretty good. Of course, tied to turn 4, but you're an aggro deck, so you aim to kill on this turn 4 turn, especially going first, because that means your grade 3 Radirin is also coming out. So for that, it's pretty good. This guy is also pretty nice. Kind of helps you aggro a little bit too, because he helps you to, you know, essentially get your Radirin back and also make tokens. But he needs Radirin and Rorowa to be on the board. So for turn 2, you have to call Radirin early too. So for that, it's like pretty all right. And I think Rorowa didn't really get too much other like specific support outside of like these 2 cards. Then we have like Maelstrom support with these 2. So this thing sadly got errata to only work with Maelstrom now. So I'm like, it gets power and draws, so it's like kind of okay. But this thing is a searcher for the like Blue Storm Armada order, which I think is pretty good. So definitely going to be pretty nice. Just discard 1, search the order. You know, it's very important to search the order and have the order. So I think it'll be played. Also, Daisuke Izuka art. So kind of gives me like Lambros's cousin vibes kind of thing. So I'm a pretty big fan of that. And then we have a bunch of generics not related to Lulu Zulu that are like also order based. So this one basically searches a blitz order. And then the blitz order that you have is this little B. So you soul blast 1, it's a 15k shield, but if you have a blitz order in your drop, it's 25k shield. So it kind of like stacks, and then you have a bunch of cards that support that too. So basically this thing searches the blitz order from your deck, and also it's 13k booster / attacker if you do have it. And then like she also is like a strong attacker for blitz order in your drop. And then I think there's a bit more as well. So there's like a bunch of order support in this set that's like all over the place, which I think is pretty interesting. This little like hero pineapple guy is also that too, so I think it's fine. Yeah, the triple can also search normal orders. It's the exact same as the Brandt one, so they're both the same, where they search a blitz order, but if you have a blitz order in the drop, then you can search a normal order. So could be good. Search like Maelstrom order, search Rorowa order that searches Radirin and like stuff like that. So maybe worth picking up. I think overall, like, so yeah, this set should be super cheap. Because it's not very great, and like Rorowa always gets looked down upon, even though I think it's pretty good. So this playset should be pretty cheap. Do recommend picking it up and giving it a try. So that is it. That is the entire set. Stoichia ranking without Mushiking. I think I have bias for Lulu Zulu, which would make me want to give it a 5 out of 5, but I think realistically it is like a 4. This whole set feels like a 4 out of 5 minus Dragon Empire. So we're going to give it a 4 out of 5. Maybe some of the, you know, after we see some results, maybe some of these will turn into 5 out of 5s. But overall, I think it's a very good set. Definitely less valuable than some previous sets. I do feel like there are some dud triples here and there, like in terms of like, you know, compared to the cycle cards in set 10, the generics in this set are like, they're okay. Yeah, I don't know if you want to play normal orders kind of feeling. So they're definitely all right. But overall, a lot of these open up a lot of options for deck building, especially in like the Craycross Epic decks, which I'm going to be curious to see how those will turn out. But that is it for my little analysis, first impressions of set 11. If you liked the video, give it a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments below, what you think of. And let me know your thoughts in the comments of what you think of set 11. What do you think are the big winners and the losers, and what your ratings are for each nation. And of course, make sure you're subscribed. I've been going ham on the YouTube, uploaded basically ever since I got well from COVID. I uploaded almost every day, dude. I went ham. So please, if you respect the hustle, give me a sub. And if you want to support me in other ways, consider becoming a YouTube channel member, or use a super thanks in the chat as well. Or if you're watching on Twitch, or if you're into Twitch streams, consider subscribing on Twitch. Maybe use that Twitch Prime. Who knows? But anyway, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.